The Talveen people had always trusted their sun. For 3,000 years, its light fed them, warmed them, and gave life to their crystal bodies. Every Talveen child was taught that the sun was not just a star, it was a promise. As long as it shined, their world would endure. Now, that promise was breaking. Ambassador Crystallis stood beneath the great transparent dome of the High Council, staring at the sky. The sun flickered, its glow uneven and unstable, like a heart struggling to beat. Inside the chamber, emergency lights reflected through his crystalline body, scattering shards of pale color across the floor. The elders around him were silent, their bodies dimmer than usual. "The final analysis is complete," said Cryas, the chief scientist. His voice rang like fragile glass. "The star is collapsing faster than predicted." Crystallis turned slowly. "How much time?" 47 days until full instability," Cryas replied. "Perhaps 80 before total destruction." A low harmonic tremor spread through the council, not a sound of panic, but of grief. "And the Galactic Concord?" asked Elder Harmonix. "Have they answered our request?" Crystallis hesitated. That hesitation said everything. "They have answered," he said finally. "The vote was unanimous." Hope flared for a heartbeat, then died. "They will not intervene," Crystallis continued. "To save our star would require energy equal to 12 industrial systems for 5 years. Evacuation would demand more ships than the Concord is willing to spare." One elder whispered, "But we are 4 billion." Crystallis lowered his gaze. "The Concord stated that we possess no strategic value, no rare materials, no military significance." Silence fell like a burial shroud. "They called it," Crystallis said, voice trembling, "an unacceptable expense." The words echoed inside him like a fracture. The Concord had sealed their system under quarantine. No ships would enter, no aid would come. They were advised, politely, to accept extinction with dignity. Outside the dome, the dying sun burned brighter for a moment, cruel and beautiful. Far from Calith, deep in open trade lanes, Captain Elena Vasquez sat on the bridge of her small merchant ship, Wandering Star. She was reviewing routine cargo logs when her communications officer frowned. "Captain," he said, "we're receiving a distress signal." Elena didn't look up. "Origin?" "The Calith system. It's marked quarantine level." That made her pause. "What's the message?" "Their star is failing," the officer said quietly. "They're asking for evacuation help." Elena leaned back, staring at the stars beyond the viewport. She knew what quarantine meant. Ignore it. Move on. Not your problem. "How far are we?" 6 days at cruise speed. 6 days. She imagined 4 billion people watching their sky darken, counting sunsets like a clock. Elena stood. "Open a channel," she said. "Captain, the Concord." "I know. Just open it." As the signal stabilized, a fractured crystalline face appeared on the screen. Ambassador Crystallis looked stunned. Someone had answered. And in that moment, when the universe expected silence, everything changed. Crystallis had no idea what one human ship could do, but for the first time since the vote, hope returned. And hope, once awakened, is dangerous to ignore. The image of Ambassador Crystallis stayed on Elena's screen long after the signal ended. He had not begged, he had not demanded, he had only looked relieved, like someone drowning who had just seen a hand reach toward them. Elena exhaled slowly. Behind her, the bridge was silent. Every crew member understood what that silence meant. A quarantine order from the Galactic Concord was not a suggestion, it was law. Breaking it could cost them their trade licenses, their ship, even their freedom. Marcus Chen, the young communications officer, broke the quiet. "Captain, we're not supposed to respond to those signals." "I know," Elena said. Sarah Kim, the chief engineer, stepped forward. "If we divert course, we'll lose our delivery contracts, maybe more than that. The Concorde doesn't forgive disobedience." Elena turned to face her crew. 40 people. Ordinary people. Traders, mechanics, navigators, not soldiers, not heroes. "Let me be very clear," Elena said. "We cannot save 4 billion lives. Even if we empty our cargo holds, we might take 20 or 30,000 at best." She let that sink in. That's nothing compared to what they're losing. No one argued. Marcus looked down at his console. "Captain, public records confirm it. The Concorde voted 40 days ago. Every major species agreed to abandon them." Sarah's voice tightened. "They just decided to let them die?" "Yes," Marcus said, "because it costs too much." Elena felt something cold harden in her chest. She had been flying trade routes for 20 years. She had seen cruelty disguised as efficiency. She had learned how the galaxy worked, how value was measured, how lives were reduced to numbers on balance sheets. But this was different. "How long do they have?" Elena asked. "About 75 days, maybe less." Elena looked at the star map. Calith blinked quietly on the edge of civilization, already treated like a grave. She spoke without raising her voice. "Set a course." Marcus froze. "To Calith?" "Yes." Sarah stared at her. "Elena, if we do this, we're done. No trade stations, no contracts. We could be arrested." Elena nodded. "I know." Silence stretched again. Then Sarah said, "If we don't go, I don't think I'll be able to look at myself anymore." One by one, heads lifted. No one cheered, no one smiled, but no one objected. Marcus swallowed. "Captain, should I send a message to Earth, to other human ships?" Elena thought for a moment. "Send it," Elena said, "to every human ship within range." She stepped closer to the viewport, watching the stars shift as the wandering star changed direction. "Tell them this," Elena added. 4 billion people are being left to die. We're going anyway. Join us if you can." The message spread like fire through human channels, quiet, direct, impossible to ignore. Back on Calith, Ambassador Cristales stood with the beacon operator as a new transmission arrived. It was short. "This is Captain Elena Vasquez. We are 6 days out. We are coming." Cristales felt his inner light flare, fragile, trembling, but alive. One ship could not save his people, but one ship had chosen to stand, and sometimes that was how revolutions began. The Concorde believed the problem was too expensive to solve. Humanity was about to prove they had misunderstood the problem entirely. The message did not explode across the galaxy. It didn't need to. It moved quietly, ship to ship, station to station, passing through human channels like a shared breath held too long. Wherever it arrived, people stopped what they were doing. On a mining station near Mars, dock workers replayed the transmission during their break. On a colony world orbiting Proxima, a transport captain listened twice, then once more in silence. On Earth, the message reached the United Nations Space Council in the middle of a long budget meeting. Most of the delegates were arguing about fuel allocations when the recording began to play. "This is Captain Elena Vasquez of the merchant ship Wandering Star," the voice said. "The Talvine people are facing extinction. Their star is dying. The Galactic Concorde has decided they are not worth saving. I'm heading to Calith. Any human ship willing to help, join us." The room went quiet. Admiral James Chen stood slowly. He had spent his life in strategy rooms, weighing risk and reward, calculating losses before they happened. He knew the math. He knew exactly why the Concorde had said no. But he also knew something else. Humanity had once been alone. They had faced famine, wars, plagues, and near extinction more than once. They remembered what it felt like when no help came, when survival depended not on permission, but on action. Chen didn't ask for a vote. Get me fleet command and every civilian ship registry we have. On Mars, an old colony ship named Endeavour was pulled out of storage. Her hull was scarred, her systems outdated, but she had once carried 50,000 humans to a new world. Engineers stared at her like they were looking at an old friend. "She still flies," one of them said. "Barely." "Then that's enough," another replied. Across human space, cargo ships dumped their loads. Luxury liners stripped out theaters and dining halls. Military transports were refitted to carry families instead of weapons. No one asked what they would gain. They already knew what they would lose if they didn't go. 6 days later, the wandering star entered the Calith system. Elena stood on the bridge as the dying sun filled the viewport. It was worse than the simulations. Violent flares ripped across its surface, sending shock waves through space. "Captain," Marcus whispered, "the planet sees. They're still active." Elena swallowed. Billions of lives, still going about their days, still hoping. They descended into orbit. Talveen ships, small, fragile, outdated, rose to meet them. Ambassador Crystallis appeared on the screen again, his crystalline body glowing brighter than before. "You came," he said. "Yes," Elena replied, "and we're not alone." As if summoned by her words, new signals lit up the radar. 1 ship, then 3, then 12. Human vessels emerging from slipspace, battered, mismatched, unmistakable. Crystallis stared in disbelief. Elena felt her chest tighten, not with pride, but with something heavier. Relief. The impossible was still impossible, but now they were no longer facing it alone. The galaxy believed help was coming too late, but humanity was just getting started. The first evacuation run was chaos. The Talveen had never fled their world before. They had no concept of mass evacuation, no drills, no practiced routines. Families clung together in glowing clusters, afraid to separate, afraid that once they did, they would never reunite. Elena watched from the bridge as Talveen officials tried to maintain order. Their voices carried calm, but their light flickered with fear. "Captain," Sarah reported, "we've stripped the cargo holds. Maximum capacity is 32,000. That's it." 32,000. Out of 4 billion. The number hurt. "Load children first," Elena said. "Then the elderly. Anyone who can't survive surface instability." Crystallis appeared again, his form dim with exhaustion. "You are saving so few," he said softly, "and yet you are giving us everything." Elena met his gaze. "We'll keep coming back." They both knew what that promise really meant. 16 days round trip. 16 days lost each run. Time they didn't have. The wandering star launched with its holds filled beyond safe limits. Talveen bodies glowed faintly in the dimmed corridors, packed together with care and fear. Human crew members gave up their quarters, sleeping on floors, eating ration bars meant for emergencies. No one complained. When they reached the nearest safe station, medical teams waited, humans who had volunteered after hearing Elena's message. The Talveen disembarked slowly, blinking at unfamiliar stars, alive but shaken. Crystallis stepped onto the station and paused. "We live because you refused to accept the numbers." Elena didn't answer. She was already turning back. By the 3rd run, more ships had arrived. 20, then 40, then 70. Human space had emptied itself into the Calith system. Admiral Chen arrived aboard his flagship and took command of the growing fleet. His first briefing was brutally honest. "At current rates," he said, pointing at the projections, "we save maybe 1 billion, maybe less." Silence. Then Dr. Sarah Okonkwo spoke. "There is another option," she said, "slipstream corridors. Experimental, dangerous. What's the success rate? Chen asked. In simulation, 60%. And in reality? She shrugged. Unknown. Explain, Chen said. If it works, she continued, we reduce travel time from 16 days to 4. That changes everything. And if it fails, someone asked, we lose ships. Chen didn't hesitate. Do it. They tested the first corridor with the Endeavor. Space folded. For 4 agonizing days there was no signal. Then the ship reappeared, damaged, scorched, but intact. Cheers erupted across the fleet. The impossible had cracked. The evacuation rate tripled overnight. But even with that miracle, the math still whispered the same cruel truth. Not everyone would make it. Elena stood alone on the bridge one night, staring at the Talveen world below. Cities still glowed. Art still existed. Children still laughed under a sun that was already killing them. She wondered how many would be left behind, and whether trying was enough when failure was still waiting. Humanity had found a way to save billions, but the galaxy was about to force them to choose who deserved the last chance. By day 23, the Calith system no longer looked abandoned. It looked crowded. Ships filled the sky, human ships of every shape and size, old cargo haulers with patched hulls, military transports running beyond safe limits. Even ships that had no business flying anymore were making the trip again and again. And still, it was not enough. Admiral Chen stood over the latest projections, his eyes red from lack of sleep. Evacuation count? He asked. 800 million, a logistics officer replied, roughly. 800 million saved. More than any rescue in galactic history. And still, more than 3 billion remained. The star's decay had accelerated. Violent solar waves tore through space, forcing ships to delay landings. Entire cities on the planet below had begun shutting down non-essential systems to conserve energy. They were preparing to die. Elena felt it during her 5th run. The Talveen were quieter now. They boarded ships without confusion, without questions. Many did not ask if they would return. They already knew the answer might be no. In one corridor, Elena passed a Talveen elder whose light flickered weakly. You should board, Elena said gently. The elder's glow pulsed once, sad, steady. I will remain, the elder replied. My place is here. Let the young go first. Elena nodded. She had no words that could change that choice. Later, Marcus approached her on the bridge. Captain, I ran the updated numbers. Elena didn't turn. Tell me. With the slipstream corridors and the current fleet size, we might reach 2 billion. Might, Elena repeated. Yes, but even if everything goes right, no ship losses, no delays, over 1 billion Talveen won't make it. The words landed like gravity. That night, Elena couldn't sleep. She walked through the ship, past rows of Talveen refugees resting in dim light. She stopped when she noticed a small figure sitting awake, a child. The child's glow flickered unevenly, fear leaking through the crystal. Can't sleep? Elena asked, sitting beside them. The light pulsed in agreement. My parents are still on the planet, the child said. They told me to go. They said they'd come later. Elena swallowed. They will try, she said. We're doing everything we can. The child was quiet for a long moment. Are we going to die? The child asked. Elena felt her chest tighten. I don't know, she answered honestly. But I know this. We won't stop trying, and we won't leave while there's still time. The child's light steadied slightly. That same night, Admiral Chen made a decision. He opened a fleet-wide channel. We are saving billions, but we will not save everyone. No one spoke. I will not pretend otherwise. The math is cruel. The time is worse. He paused. But we do not abandon people because the numbers are bad.
We stay, we keep going, we save who we can, right up to the last possible moment. Across 100 ships, crews listened in silence, and every single one stayed. Humanity had accepted that they could not save everyone, but the galaxy was about to test how far they were willing to go for the ones they couldn't.
The disaster happened on day 34. The transport ship Liberty vanished from tracking in the middle of a slipstream jump. No explosion, no debris, just silence. For 6 minutes, no one breathed. Then the signal returned, weak, unstable, but alive. Admiral Chen reached the console first. Status? A distorted image appeared. Captain Marcus Oye stood on the bridge of the Liberty, sweat on his face, breath uneven. "We're out," he said. "Drives are dead. Slipstream collapse burned them clean. We're drifting." "How many aboard?" Chen asked. 120,000 Talvine, all alive, for now. The room went quiet. "How long can you hold life support?" Chen asked. Marcus hesitated. 48 hours, maybe a little more. Chen did the math instantly. The nearest ship was 3 days away at best speed. 3 days. They would never make it. A logistics officer spoke carefully. "Sir, if we divert rescue ships, we lose evacuation capacity. Tens of millions more won't make it off the planet." Chen turned slowly. "Are you suggesting we leave them?" "I'm suggesting we consider the numbers." The word hung in the air. Numbers. Chen walked to the viewport, staring at the dying star. "The Concorde used numbers," he said quietly. "They calculated that 4 billion lives weren't worth the cost." He turned back. "We didn't come here to become them." He slammed his hand down. "Divert the ships, all of them. We do not leave people behind." The rescue order went out. On the Liberty, Marcus gathered his crew. "We don't have enough air," the engineer said. "Not for everyone." Marcus already knew the answer. "Cut life support to crew sections," he ordered. "Reroute everything to the refugees." A young crew member swallowed. "That means—" "I know," Marcus said. "Do it." No one argued. The ship grew colder, harder to breathe. Crew members worked in thin air, dizzy but focused. Talvine children slept unaware that strangers were giving up oxygen so they could live. Marcus recorded a message. "This is the Liberty," he said, breathing hard. "Refugees are safe. Crew is holding. Tell our families we chose this." The message spread fast. It reached Earth. It reached Calith. It reached species who had been watching from a distance, telling themselves this wasn't their problem. On the water world Miran, healer Silara watched the footage. Humans collapsing from exhaustion, ships breaking apart, a crew choosing suffocation so strangers could breathe. "They're killing themselves," her colleague whispered. "Yes, and somehow they are more alive than we are." She made a decision that would end her career. "Prepare a medical transport," she said. "We're going to Calith." The rescue ships reached Liberty with 4 hours to spare. Not one Talvine died. 3 crew members needed intensive care. All survived. When the Liberty was towed back into rotation, the fleet was changed. The question was no longer, how many can we save? It became, who are we willing to stand with? Humanity had crossed a line. Numbers no longer mattered. And once that line was crossed, the rest of the galaxy could no longer look away. The rescue of the Liberty changed everything. Not because of what was saved, but because of what was sacrificed. Across the galaxy, the footage spread. Human crews collapsing from exhaustion. Engineers sleeping beside engines still running hot. Captains refusing rest, refusing rotation, refusing to stop. They were not winning. They were enduring. On the water world of Miran, healer Silara watched the reports again and again. Her species believed in balance, in efficiency, in calm decisions guided by reason. What the humans were doing was none of those things. "They are inefficient,"
her colleague Toros said. They are damaging themselves. They cannot save everyone. Solara nodded slowly. Yes, and yet they go on. She watched a human medic carry a Talvine child twice his weight, watched another human faint, wake, and return to work without complaint. When was the last time, Solara asked quietly, that we did something knowing it would cost us dearly, and did it anyway? Toros had no answer. Solara invoked the Oath of Preservation, an ancient Mirani law that overruled all political authority when lives were at stake. It had not been used in centuries. Within hours, Mirani hospital ships changed course. They did not announce it publicly. They simply came. On the war world of Korsoth Prime, Commander Tulos watched the same images with a different reaction. The Korsoth respected strength, discipline, and honor. They despised weakness. Yet what he saw disturbed him. Human ships limping back into orbit, hulls cracked, crews exhausted, still turning around for another run. That, Tulos muttered, is not weakness. He stood before his war council. The humans are standing with a dying species. They are willing to die rather than abandon them. The council objected. The Talvine offer no strategic value. Tulos's eyes hardened. Honor is not strategic. He invoked the right of personal honor. Any Korsoth warrior could do so and could not be stopped without bloodshed. I am going to Calith, Tulos declared. Any warrior who still remembers what honor means may follow. 73 warships followed him. On engineering worlds, on merchant hubs, on distant colonies, other species watched and felt something unfamiliar, uncomfortable. The humans were forcing the galaxy to see itself. Back in the Calith system, Elena stood on the bridge of the Wandering Star, watching new ships arrive, non-human ships. "Captain," Marcus said quietly, "we're getting Mirani medical vessels and Korsoth warships. They say they're observing." Elena almost laughed. "Let them observe," she said. With the new arrivals, evacuation rates improved. Human crews finally slept for more than 4 hours. Injured workers were treated properly. Damaged ships were reinforced. But the star continued to decay. Even with help, the projections remained cruel. 2.5 billion saved, 1.5 billion still waiting. Admiral Chen watched the numbers and felt the weight press down harder each day. The galaxy was finally moving, but time was still running out. The galaxy had joined the effort, but the clock did not care about shame, honor, or courage, and soon humanity would face its hardest choice yet. By day 48, the truth could no longer be softened. Admiral Chen stood in the command center, staring at the final projections. They had rerun the numbers a dozen times, hoping exhaustion had caused a mistake. It hadn't. "Say it," Chen said. His chief analyst swallowed. "At best, 3 billion Talvine evacuated." Chen closed his eyes. "And the rest? 400 million will still be on the planet when the star collapses. 400 million. Not a statistic, not a margin of error. People, cities, families who had waited too long so others could go first." Chen felt something inside him crack. Not loudly, not dramatically, but in a way that could never be fixed. He opened a fleet-wide channel. Every ship stopped. Every crew listened. "This is Admiral Chen," he said. His voice was steady, but it took effort. "I will not lie to you. We cannot save everyone." Silence spread through the fleet. "We have pushed every ship beyond design limits. We have worked ourselves to the edge of collapse, and still 400 million people will be left behind. Somewhere, someone sobbed. The sound cut through the channel. Chen continued. The logical decision is to complete evacuations for 7 more days, then withdraw, save who we can, preserve the fleet, go home. He paused. I am not giving that order. The silence deepened. Instead, Chen said, I am giving you a choice. Elena felt her breath catch. We can leave in 7 days, Chen said, or we can stay. We can remain in the system until the end, continuing evacuations as long as possible, and then stand with those who remain. Someone whispered, That's suicide. Yes, Chen said, it is. He didn't argue it, he didn't dress it up. If we stay, he continued, we will die when the star collapses. No rescue, no escape. A long pause. But if we leave, he said softly, 400 million people will die alone, knowing we chose survival over standing with them. Elena looked around her bridge. Marcus, Sarah, crew members who had given everything already. Chen's voice broke just slightly. I'm not ordering anyone to stay. Talk to your crews. Vote. You have 6 hours. The channel closed. On the wandering star, no one spoke. Sarah broke the silence first. I'm staying. Marcus nodded. Me too. One by one, hands raised. No hesitation, no debate. Elena felt tears burn her eyes. Record the vote. Across the fleet, ships reported in. Endeavor, staying. Liberty, staying. Mirani hospital ships, staying. Korsov battle group, staying. 147 ships. Not one chose to leave. Chen received the final count and sat down heavily. All of them? He asked. Yes, sir, his officer said, crying openly now. Every single ship. Chen opened a channel to the planet. Ambassador Crystallis appeared on every Talvine screen. People of Talvine, Chen said, we cannot save everyone, but we will not abandon you. Crystallis's light trembled violently. We will stay, Chen said. We will stand with you until the end. No one will face the darkness alone. Across the planet, Talvine cities lit up in one massive pulse of light, grief and gratitude combined. Crystallis whispered, Why? Chen answered simply, because leaving would cost us more. Humanity had chosen to die rather than abandon strangers, and that choice was about to shake the entire galaxy.
The broadcast did not stay contained within the Calith system. It spread, first through human channels, then through neutral relays, then, despite every attempt to suppress it, across the wider galaxy. Humanity had chosen to die, not in battle, not for conquest, but to stand beside 400 million strangers so they would not face the end alone. On worlds that had once voted yes to abandoning the Talvine, screens filled with images no one could ignore. Human crews sitting beside Talvine families, sharing food that barely remained. Engineers reinforcing failing hulls even though escape was no longer planned. Medics holding hands instead of instruments because comfort was all they had left to give. On the water world of Miran, healer Solara watched the final human vote tally scroll past. All stayed, she whispered. Her council chamber was silent. They were given the option to leave, one elder said, and they refused. Solara turned slowly. Then we have no excuse. She transmitted a message, not to her council, but to every Mirani ship. Any vessel capable of travel, she said, set course for Calith. The humans are staying. We will not let them stand alone.
On Korsoth Prime, Commander Tulos received confirmation that the humans intended to die. He did not sit. He did not consult. He broadcast to every Korsoth fleet. "Honor has been called," he said. "Those who understand will come." Warships turned without permission. On Varthos, the great engineering collectives analyzed the dying star again, not as a lost cause, but as a problem no one had dared to solve. One engineer spoke what others had avoided. "We could stabilize it." The room froze. "It would require extreme energy expenditure," another said. "Massive losses, equipment damage." "Yes," the first replied, "but not doing so will cost something greater." They voted unanimously. In the Concord chamber, High Arbiter Zelthorn stood as reports flooded in, species breaking orders, fleets mobilizing, aid pouring toward a system they had already condemned. "This is disorder," he said weakly. A Dulasi representative rose. "No, this is consequence." Zelthorn's mandibles trembled. "They shamed us," another voice said, "by caring." The chamber fell quiet. For the first time in centuries, the Concord was not leading, it was following. Back in Calith orbit, Elena watched the sensors light up. "Captain," Marcus said, stunned, "we're detecting hundreds of incoming vessels." Elena stared. Non-human hulls, engineering platforms, medical ships, war fleets. "They're coming," Sarah whispered. Elena felt her knees weaken. Why now? Ambassador Crystallis answered before anyone else could. "Because you reminded them," he said, his light blazing, "what it means to be alive." The dying sun still raged. Time was still short, but the galaxy, finally, had chosen a side. Humanity had prepared to die, but the universe had other plans, and they were arriving fast.
The sky over Calith changed color, not from the dying sun, but from ships. They arrived in waves, hundreds at first, then thousands, vessels of every design, every species, every technology level. Some were sleek and powerful, others were patched together and barely spaceworthy. But all of them came for the same reason. They were done pretending this was acceptable. Admiral Chen stared at the tactical display in disbelief. "Confirm those readings." "They're real," his officer said. "Varthos' stellar engineering fleet just dropped out of slipspace, full formation." Chen's breath caught. "That's their entire fleet." A new channel opened automatically. The image that appeared was unfamiliar, tall, faceted beings of light and metal. Their leader spoke calmly. "We are the Varthos Collective. We have reviewed the Calith star." "And?" Admiral Chen asked. "We can slow its collapse, possibly stabilize it." The command center exploded in sound. "How long?" Chen demanded. 30 to 40 days, the engineer replied. "Perhaps more if we push beyond safety margins." 30 days. That was everything. Evacuation projections recalculated in seconds. 3 billion became 3.8, then 4. For the first time since the rescue began, the numbers bent in their favor. On the surface of Calith, Ambassador Crystallis felt the shift before the announcement reached him. The sun's violent fluctuations slowed, only slightly, but enough. "They are touching the star," one of the scientists whispered. Crystallis' light flared bright enough to hurt human eyes. "They came," he said, "all of them." The Varthos and Vrex engineers deployed massive energy frameworks around the star, structures larger than cities, glowing with controlled force. It was dangerous work. Several platforms were lost in the first hours. No one stopped. Meanwhile, evacuation ships worked without pause. Korsoth warriors carried entire Talveen families in their arms. Mirani healers treated humans who refused care until they collapsed.
Elena stood on the bridge of the Wandering Star, watching new ships take over routes her crew had been flying for weeks. "Captain," Sarah said quietly, "we're no longer essential." Elena nodded. "Good." For the first time in months, she allowed herself to sit. On day 68, the final evacuation signal sounded. All remaining civilians cleared, Calith's surface empty. Ambassador Cristales boarded the last ship, Elena's ship. He stood at the ramp and looked back at his world, cities silent but intact, a sun no longer screaming. "Will it survive?" he asked. Elena followed his gaze. "They think so, with time." Cristales turned to Elena. "Then you didn't just save our people, you saved our future." As the last ship lifted away, the fleet held position, not fleeing, not celebrating, just watching. Because for the first time, the galaxy had chosen compassion fast enough. The Talveen were saved, but the galaxy still had to face the truth of what it had almost allowed to happen. Saving the Talveen did not feel like victory. Not at first. The Calith system was quiet now, too quiet. Where once billions of lives had moved under a glowing sky, there was only an empty world and a wounded star being held together by machines and willpower. Admiral Chen ordered the fleet to remain in orbit for 48 hours. No celebrations, no speeches, just stillness. Because everyone needed time to understand what had almost happened. Across the galaxy, the reaction was not joy, it was discomfort. On worlds that had voted to abandon Calith, leaders faced their people. Questions were asked that had no easy answers. Why didn't we help sooner? Who decided 4 billion lives were too expensive? What kind of civilization does that make us? The Galactic Concord was forced into an emergency session. High Arbiter Zelthorn stood before the council, smaller than he had ever seemed. "We followed our laws," he said, "our economic models, our precedent." A Dulasi representative stood, "And all of it failed." Another voice followed, then another. For the first time in its history, the Concord did something unthinkable. It admitted fault. The decision regarding Calith was wrong, not partially, completely. The chamber froze. "We calculated cost," he continued, "but we forgot value." He looked directly at the human delegation. "You reminded us what civilization is meant to protect." A vote was called, not for sanctions, not for control, for change. The Calith principle was proposed. When a species faces extinction, aid is not optional. Cost does not override life. No one is left to die alone. The vote passed unanimously. Back aboard the Wandering Star, Elena sat alone in her quarters. For the first time in months, there was nothing urgent to do. No alarms, no countdowns, just silence. Cristales visited her before the fleet dispersed. "You could take power now," he said. "Influence, status. Humanity would be respected." Elena shook her head. "That's how this gets corrupted." Cristales studied her. "Then what do you want?" Elena thought for a long moment. "I want this, to stay remembered, not as a miracle, but as a warning." Cristales nodded slowly. "That," he said, "is why we will never forget." As ships departed one by one, Calith remained behind, not a grave, but a scar, a reminder etched into the galaxy, because forgetting would be easier, and easier was what had almost killed 4 billion people. 1 year later, a new world glowed under a gentle, stable sun. The Talveen called it New Calith. From orbit, the cities looked like scattered crystals shining softly across the continents. The light was different here, not desperate, not fading, but calm, alive. Captain Elena Vasquez stood at the viewport of a transport ship, watching the planet grow larger. She hadn't wanted to come. Ceremonies made her uncomfortable. Praise felt heavy, unnecessary. But Ambassador Crystales had asked. Some requests could not be ignored. When she stepped onto the surface, the air hummed faintly with Talvine harmonics. Children moved through learning gardens, their crystalline forms bright with curiosity. Humans walked among them, teachers, engineers, medics, no longer rescuers, just neighbors. Crystales greeted her in the capital city, now named First Light. "You saved us," he said. Elena corrected him gently. "We stood with you. The rest followed." They walked through a memorial plaza where a single statue stood. It showed a human and a Talvine side by side, facing a star. No weapons, no banners, just two figures refusing to turn away. At the base were words carved in crystal. "We answered." Crystales noticed Elena reading it. "That is the lesson we teach our children," he said. "Not that you were heroes, but that you answered when others stayed silent." The ceremony was brief. No speeches about glory, no medals, only a shared moment of quiet. Across the galaxy, the effects of Calith were already spreading. When another species faced ecological collapse, help arrived within days. When a colony star destabilized, no vote was needed. When the cost was high, the answer still came. "We're coming." The Concord changed, slowly and imperfectly, but it changed. Not because of law, because of memory. Years later, Elena returned to merchant trading. The wandering star flew again, repaired but unchanged. She refused upgrades that would erase its scars. They reminded her who she was. One night on a routine route, a distress signal crackled through her console. Mining station, structural failure, life support failing. The old reflex stirred, the one shaped by habit and math and risk. She didn't calculate. She smiled. "This is Captain Vasquez," she said, steady and calm. "Signal received." She paused only long enough to turn the ship. "We're coming." Far away on New Calith, Talvine children learned the story of a dying sun and a single ship that answered first. They learned that courage wasn't loud, that compassion wasn't efficient, and that sometimes changing the galaxy began with two simple words spoken into the dark. "I'm coming." The universe listened, and this time, it answered back. May this message strengthen your faith and renew your hope. Thank you for staying until the end. If this touched your heart, like, share, and subscribe to Astro Realms for more uplifting content. May God's blessings overflow in your life. See you soon.